So we continue with some of the talks for the Exploring Monastic Life course. I wanted to share some thoughts from a very helpful conversation that I had with Venerable Kunga recently about what it means to have a meaningful life. And so I think if you're considering ordination, then that question is probably very big for you. It was for me in terms of how am I going to use this time and this energy and this life that I have so that I feel I'm using it in the best way possible for me. And what was interesting from our conversation was that, a point I think a penny dropped for me at least, is that a meaningful life is looking beyond just this one life in a very deep way, not just intellectually, but from the heart. And so in the introductory talk that Venerable Chödrön gave for this course, she encouraged us to have the focus on renunciation. And why? Because right now, at least I'll speak for myself, is I'm stuck with this crazy mind that I have little control over and a very fragile and uncooperative body that doesn't give me, doesn't do what I want and is eventually going to betray me and die. And then at the same time, I had this amazing potential of the Buddha nature and the opportunity to study and practice the Dharma right now. So what am I going to do with this very fleeting opportunity? And while I can intellectually understand that, what I'm up against is what I've seen what I've been schooled to do is to look externally for measures of meaning and purpose in my life, to ground my self-worth and my self-esteem in how many degrees I have, in what praise I'm given, how much money I make, how far up the chain I am on the social or workplace ladder. Very much tied to the 8 worldly concerns of wanting pleasure, praise, reputation, and lots of sense objects, pleasurable sense objects. And so the Dharma really asks us to stretch our mind to consider infinite lifetimes that I've been cycling around since being in this time, doing everything under the sun, and that I don't really have much to show for it right now, in terms of if I've been, top of the ladder or something, where am I now? And that I will also continue to cycle endlessly unless I do something about it. And so intellectually, I can nod my head and say, yes, I understand that. And then when I look at how I spend my day and how much time I spend distracted by chasing after the next nice cup of tea or the next praise, or often just zoned out and on automatic and not even paying any attention to the kind of flavor that's in my mind, just doing the next task that's on my list to check it off, I see that this big picture of beyond just this one life hasn't sunk in. It's not all the time, but a lot of the time it really hasn't sunk in. And so to ask myself, I find it helpful to ask, does focus on just this one life bring happiness? And I can see that it doesn't, that I think we're all familiar with the dissatisfaction that comes when we chase after this sense object or this goal and it doesn't turn out to be what we thought it would be. Or it was what we thought it would be, but then it doesn't last. Or that it comes with some problems. So then that bigger focus on multiple lifetimes is just so helpful. And so what I've come to is thinking around the idea of precepts as being this powerful cause for creating the causes for my own and others' happiness. And so that can be the 5 lay precepts, but particularly for me, living in monastic precepts. And that it's such a strong commitment to ethical conduct, a commitment to creating virtue, to refraining from harm, and to putting goodness out into the world. That I can trust on that to bring me to a place where I will be able to find the happiness that I seek. But do I or do you really believe in the power of the precepts? Because it's the benefits aren't tangible immediately. I can't see it with my eyes that I do something or I live in the precepts, but the benefit that will come in future lives, I can't see that right now. So it's this kind of obscure thing in the future, whereas the benefits or the fleeting pleasures of this life can be much more vivid in the mind, a bigger distraction and more alluring when we're still exploring that aspiration. And so I found it helpful to ask myself, how much do I believe in karma? Do I really believe that happiness comes from virtuous actions? And do I trust that karma expands as well? I think this one really hits home for me in terms of, if I think about how karma expands, and it's quite delightful to think about these small actions that I can do, that in the future can bring these results that I can't even conceive of right now. So these actions of refraining from harm, acting upon loving kindness, what amazing results, benefits to myself and others will they bring in the future? Because living in precepts and living in a monastic life really nudges us, pushes us, encourages us to refrain from harm and to engage in virtue. And another question that might come up, and I think many people raised their hands on the initial discussion, on one of the initial sessions, of feeling satisfied and liking their career. And so the question of where will I be most beneficial to the world, that might come up for you. And there might be some satisfaction with a career that's very much orientated to working, to benefiting others. And you can have this confidence that, if I do this, and if I stay in my job, I can help X amount of people in this certain way, and it's very tangible. And what benefit will come from, running off to a monastery and being separated from society, and I don't know what's going to come from that. And as a Venerable Trinity emphasized, that in the first few years of your training, particularly, the emphasis isn't on engaging these big projects or reaching out to the community and doing more external focused things, as many monastic communities do very much engage with society on that level. But in the first few years of training, the focus is much more inside, to tame the mind, to learn how to live in the precepts, to learn the form, and to strengthen that foundation of spiritual practice. And so that focus from external to internal can be disorientating, and it can leave you feeling potentially leave you feeling a bit disconnected and wonder where that contribution to society, am I still contributing? Am I benefiting? And again, to come back to asking myself, well, what's the state of my mind really? To take an honest look of, well, I'm still very much pushed around by the afflictions. I get angry very, very easily. I'm attached to the smallest things. And even in the jobs that I do, or if I'm out in the world working, I still create lots of messes through my uncontrolled mind. And I also can't really control the external world as much as I'd like to think that I can, so that no matter with the best planning that I have, I can't guarantee that what I'm working on will bring the results that I wish in my workplace or in this social work that I'm doing. Whereas in contrast, putting energy into taming the mind, putting energy into living in precepts, I can trust that will bring benefit. So whatever energy I put into holding myself back from harming others or growing certain good qualities, that will benefit myself and others immediately. But also coming back to the idea that karma expands, like what amazing results will that bring me in the future? And so it might seem hard right now thinking of being celibate, or from not being able to engage in certain entertainment or certain activities that might bring us pleasure right now. But cultivating the fortitude of living in the precepts and holding back from engaging in those activities, it will become easier and easier, so that in future lives, behaving in this way will just come naturally. It will just flow because we've made it part of our bones, so to speak. Yeah. And so that's benefit from our own side. And then to think about the benefit from the side of others. So living in the precept of to not kill. To think about how safe others will feel around us, instinctively trusting, instinctively feeling safe around someone who has that vow to not kill. If we really embodied that, then that tendency in us will just grow and grow and grow. And that's one of the effects that will come, is that people feel that around us. And it might be hard to work with sexual attachment now, but in the future, if we've trained ourselves in that way, then we will instinctively view others as just human beings with amazing potential that we can help, as opposed to seeing them as bodies we can get pleasure from. and how much benefit that will have to others when we're engaging with them on that level, as opposed to engaging with them in sexual relationships. And so if we take the example of someone like the Dalai Lama, we can see the huge impact that one person can have through the power of them living in ethical conduct. So many people are inspired by his actions, the many projects. Many people just instinctively want to help him enact the amazing visions that he has. And so to us training, working with our afflictions, living in precepts, very much embodying ethical conduct, gradually we'll be able to have these increasingly expanding impacts on other people, helping them actualize the happiness that they seek, and very much, I think, actualizing our own happiness in the process. And I was, in terms of also in having a meaningful life, I was very touched yesterday when Venerable was talking about the great kindness of the thousands of practitioners since the time of the Buddha who have preserved the Dharma so that we now can practice it. It's due to their kindness that I have the opportunity to meet the teachings and to be able to learn to understand my mind, to understand the world, to have an interest in compassion, to know the methods to practice it, and to achieve my spiritual goals. And so to have the opportunity to take ordination, to be able to contribute to the sea of practitioners that can help preserve the Dharma is an amazing opportunity. It really wasn't something that was in my initial motivation for ordination. It was very much when I initially considered it was about my practice. How can I find circumstances where I feel I can cultivate a nice situation for myself and be able to free myself from my own suffering? And really it was coming and living in community where I came to see all the effort that it takes to be able to offer the Dhamma to the world, and to see the effort that each individual makes within themselves to be able to do that. That my vision, my understanding was really stretched, and then that wish to then repay that kindness both to people who have long gone in the past, who enable me to practice now, but also to the people who I live amongst now, who through their own practice help me to do the same. So to see ordination as a very meaningful way to contribute to that sea, in this case the sea of red, that keeps the Dhamma flourishing for people in the future as well. And so I want to close with just two verses that I used from the King of Prayers to really encourage myself on the monastic path. The first verse is, "Remembering my past lives in all varieties of existence, may I practice the Bodhisattva way, and thus in each cycle of death, migration, and birth, may I always abandon the householder's life." So I take this as a reminder of the bigger picture, that I've been cycling for a very, very long time, and I've done everything under the sun. I've had every pleasure, had every high station in life, and yet again, here I am with not much to show for it. And I've also done every horrific thing that I often cringe at when I hear on the news. I have deep sadness when I hear about it. And so to be able to, if I had the ability to look back and see all that, to be able to see all my past lives, then not wanting to experience those suffering results in the future, that's a big motivation to be able to drop the chase for fleeting sense pleasures and really commit to spiritual practice right now. And also understanding that everyone else is in exactly the same boat. That they've done everything under the sun. They've got a whole lot of negative karma on their mind streams, and they're going to experience suffering in the future unless they do something about it. It's very motivating, and it makes a lot of sense then to commit myself to the Bodhisattva path, where I'm focused on the welfare of all beings, and to do that within the monastic form. Why? Because I believe in ethical conduct. I want myself and others to be happy, and I'm thoroughly tired of chasing after fleeting sense pleasures that don't last. And also because I want the greatest purification and collection of merit possible in this life, to put the biggest habitual energy patterns of commitment to virtue on my mind stream as possible, and so that I don't get tangled up in the distractions and obligations that come with the householder's life. And then the verse that follows is, "Then, following in the Buddha's footsteps, following the footsteps of all the Buddhas, in perfecting the practice of a bodhisattva, may I always act without error or compromise, with ethical conduct faultless and pure. And so the Buddha was a monastic. No one ordained the Buddha, but it said that he has a natural ordination, where the monastic life is just a natural expression of the enlightened mind. So by taking ordination, we're following in the footsteps of the Buddha, following a path of practice where eventually we'll be able to always act without error or compromise, with ethical conduct faultless and pure, and in that way be of greatest benefit to all beings. So in reflecting on what it means to have a most meaningful life, meaningful in terms that I know that I'm contributing to the greater good of the world and taking steps towards actualizing my own and others' long-term happiness, I found the Buddha's teachings to provide a very new and expansive perspective that extends far beyond just this one life, but is very much grounded in this life by making a wholehearted commitment to ethical conduct, compassion, and wisdom. And for me personally, following in the footsteps of the Buddha and living the monastic life provides a very special opportunity to do that, to express my commitment to that and to have quite a lot of joy and contentment while I do so.